Hello and welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to be discussing a fairly significant change to the way in which voice and internet services are delivered in the UK in a project that's been phrased the Great British Switch Off. So my name's Lee Houston, I'm Head of Product here at Zen, and our aim for this session is a pretty simple one. By the end, we're hoping that you will all understand what the switch off is, what the impact to your business is, and the practical steps that you can take in order to future-proof your communications. So I'm very fortunate that I've been joined by a key person in this program. So would you like to introduce yourself, Juliette?
Hiya, thanks Lee, and hello to everybody. It's an honour to be here as always with wonderful Zen and customers. So my name's Juliette. I've been in Openreach for 14 years, 24 years in the bigger group, so I've been in telecoms quite a while. I work in the All IP and Exchange Exit team, so we've got two programs currently running, and we're going to kind of talk about the All IP one today. And my job is I'm responsible for working with the key stakeholders. So the very most important people for me are my customers, so like yourself, Lee, and obviously your customers are really important to us as well. We work with the smallest to the largest CP, so I work with around 600 different communication providers, as we call you. Work with Ofcom, OTA, DSIT, Tech UK, Fit to Switch, FCS, 37 external industries. We run the industry for it, and we've also got a test lab. So it's a really, really, to be fair, fulfilling job, trying to make sure that people know what's going on about the program, but also listening to all the issues and trying to fix them on our side.
Absolutely. So let's start with a really basic question then, shall we? Which is, what is the switch off? What are we talking about? So I appreciate people use different terminology. I've heard the Great British Switch Off. I've heard the All IP program. I've heard the Great Fibre Switch On, which is another way to look at things. So what are we talking about?
Well, that's a actually is a good question, because even in Openreach, we have several different programs. I said I'm involved in two that are related but not the same. And we always talk as well about our fibre program, and they're all kind of interlinked. So we're building lots of fibre. So we're building 25 million by the end of 2026, and that's full fibre. So I'm not going to get too techie here, but essentially where the fibre goes all the way from the exchange to the premises. That's a really big problem that we've got. And because that's happening, it means that we don't need all the space in the exchanges that we once needed for all the copper equipment. So it was actually in 2017 that BT Group, so not Openreach, BT Group, who own the infrastructure, announced that they were going to turn off the PSTN. So PSTN, going to be really plain here, it's the public switch telephone network, and essentially lots of big switches, lots of big equipment that sits in our exchanges, and we've got about 5,500 exchanges, and you need to switch in every single exchange to help all the calls and the traffic go up and down. Because we're moving to better technology, we don't need these big switches anymore. And besides that, actually, the equipment is actually way past its sell-by date. It's hard to fix. The skills from engineers is kind of gone. So it makes sense, really, that we have to remove it. It's actually been removed around the world. It's not just an Openreach thing, or in fact, different companies in the UK doing the same. And it's happening across the world, right? So it's the thing to do because we need a really reliable service for customers. So that was announced 2017. Now, that's the switches, that's the BT part of it. But we run our products Openreach off that equipment. So we have a product called WLR, which wholesale line rental won't mean anything to anybody. But essentially, it's our big product that is a really simple but feature-rich product. And that is the product that a lot of people use just for simple voice connectivity. And then it also has things like ISDN 230, and also some types of the slower broadband also work over the top of it. So that is going to come out as the switches come out, and we need to move everybody to better technology and more future reliable technology.
Great. So I think if I was to try and summarize some of that for you, and correct me if I'm wrong here, we're talking about the switch off of legacy technology, and those products that are probably of most interest to the people on this call will be copper-based phone lines, so the single phone line or the ISDN, and also copper-based internet service delivery lines too. So our ADSL lines or our fibre to the cabinet. But they're the primary products that are impacted by this change. Is that right?
Yeah, so we actually have two copper solutions that Openreach sells. So we have WLR, which is the one that's going to go, and we do have one called MPF as well, which that some other people take. So that is staying, but the WLR one, which is used by more people, is going to be going. Yeah.
Great. So we know what's happening. When is this change due to take place? When is presumably somebody pushes a big red button, do they? And it all turns
I
off?
hope it's as easy as that. It would be lovely if it were. So you'll know, Lee, that
Yeah.
the date has been around in all of our minds, set on for December 2025 for a long time, and we've been saying it's not going to change, not going to change, and it did change. So am I okay to go a little bit into why it changed as well?
Yeah, please do. Yeah. So
Yeah, right.
we've
Okay.
been communicating with our customers for some time that December 2025 was the date, and then earlier this year there was a change to that date. So yeah, let's
There
discuss
was,
what
yeah,
that
yeah.
means and why.
So about this time last year, it was in late November. There was two fatal incidents. It was reported that two fatal incidents actually on a different network provider's network, and it was to do with vulnerable customers. So pretty quickly, the industry got together and the government got together. The DSIT part of the government got together and said, "Hang on a minute, let's just pause. Let's see what's going on. Actually, whilst we know that people need to move off, let's make sure that they're moving and the migrations are as safe as they can be as well." So a few things happened. So there was a charter put together, so a telecare charter, where it was really about for customer like yourselves, CPs, communication providers. And actually, we had one as well. Two charters talking about how best to move people. And I think that was a really good idea to put, some of the biggest communication providers signed up and said, this is what we're going to do to be responsible. So that took quite, a few months to everyone to sign up to and to agree. And during that time, BT themselves thought, we've got to make sure we do this properly, and we can't, whilst we definitely need to be off as soon as we can't put these vulnerable customers in a position where they need to be rushed through. So what they did was they came back to Openreach and said, right, we are going to give an extra 13 months. It's not 2 years, like sometimes it says in the press. It's 13 months. It's now January 2027. And the logical thing for us to do was to go to that date. If the switches were going to be available longer, we felt it was the right thing to do to give that time extra. So the date now is January 2027. However, some CPs are still trying to get as much off, and this is, I guess, what I would say to you, Lee, as much off before December 2025, right? The network is not going to get any better. When something fails, we're taking apart some other pieces of equipment. If I can just quote some stats that might help. So there was a Connected Nations report in 2023, which showed that there was a rise of 20% in the number of PSTN incidents reported. So 20%, so 1 in 5 extra incidents happening in 2023. Also 60% increase in the PSTN hours lost. So that PSTN not available for an extra 60% of the time. Now, the thing that's really interesting about this is that when you've got a copper phone line, and maybe thinking about who uses a phone, and just a phone line, maybe not the broadband. Look, we've got lots of singleton users on this network. They pick up the phone when they need to use it. Actually, there's probably plenty of times if the network is degrading that it's not working. Not plenty of times, but obviously, if it's not working, you don't notice it. Whereas now, as we move on to big, faster broadband, we're always online. If my broadband went down now, Lee, we'd know about it.
Absolutely.
So I guess over time, people are noticing more and more, but on the old PSTN where people don't have the internet, it isn't as obvious. So I think we need to be really mindful that we don't always know when there's a fault, whereas on the internet, we tend to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the experience that you've just shared there and those statistics is absolutely what we see here at Zen. So there is a much greater failure rate on these legacy products than what there is on, say, full fiber FTTP. Which is the strategic product which we're trying to ultimately move everybody to where possible.
Absolutely. And in fact, since 2020, the fault rate on copper is 50% higher than it is on FTTP. So you can think, do you want a fault for your customers? Absolutely not. And that's why, it's not just a get off this. It's actually, this other thing's quite good, actually, to move on to. It's much better.
I think you raise a great point. I think we're often guilty of talking about this project to customers as almost a negative thing, and it's quite the opposite, right? As we're talking about future-proof technologies, increased bandwidth, so internet speed for many people, giving us the ability to do more and work differently. So maybe if let's change tack slightly and just talk about the impact to business then, and why, because this industry change will affect both residential customers that have copper phone lines and copper-based internet services, and also businesses. So maybe what's the difference between the two? What considerations might a business have that a residential customer wouldn't?
So I guess it depends on what you use it for, doesn't it? So I've got 3 teenagers, so the FTTP I've got is really useful because, believe it or not, they play some wicked video games. What is a business? Are you using it for to pay for the tills, or are you using it to power the Wi-Fi in a shopping centre? I guess it depends what you're using it for as to what you need. So it's a really good time, I think, when everyone's moving, to look at, well, actually, what do I need? Do I need the biggest? And I think because much higher speed, so we're selling now 1.8 gig download, and I think probably we're not there yet in terms of what we're going to use that for, and over time we will. So I think it's just thinking, what do I need? And for a business, things like power. So you'll know that WLR, because it's actually based on copper, as we talk about, the metallic bit sends through the power to the end customer. And obviously with fibre, it doesn't do that because it's just a piece of glass. So it's about thinking about, where can I put the equipment? Can I have power? Do I have resilience? So do I have battery backup? Or, those kind of things are really, really important when moving to a different product.
Great. And I just wanted to very quickly jump back to the date. So we're at January 27. So we've done some research at Zen when we've gone out and spoken to our customers and other customers. And what we found was that actually a pretty high proportion, 28% of people were aware that the date had changed. But concerningly, most were saying that they were going to use that delay, that extension, as a reason to postpone their activity. And I suppose if what we've just said there with regards to failure rates and increased performance on the new products is that we would try to impress on people is not to delay this, but to start the process as soon as possible.
Yeah, and let me help you with a few more reasons, I guess, why you shouldn't wait.
Please.
So at the minute, from our programme perspective in Openreach, we've got around 5.5 million lines still to move. So it's the original date was just over a year ago. So that's a pretty scary 5.5 million. We started with over 16 million. But we know from remember the Salisbury and Mildenhall trials that we did, for example, the last bit is really hard. So you have to put a lot more effort into your last few customers to get them to do the course. So we do appreciate that. And in terms of where we are right now, we've got around 800 days left actually now till the end of January 2027. That equates, and I've got the figures written down, 7,000 a day we need to move, 49,000 a week. That isn't insignificant. And what everyone, would like people to think about is, if people don't move, then what's going to happen at the end is you're going to have this bow wave of everybody wanting to move at the end. So we've got a finite engineer resource, and we want everyone to be moved really smoothly and safely. So, don't wait to the end, because it's going to get busy and we want to do as many people. But some of the other things that are really interesting, or really things to think about in terms of some of our timelines that obviously, Lee, we pass on to you.
Yes.
So we've got some things happening next year as well. So what we've decided to do is next December, which would have been the original deadline, we've actually decided we're going to end our current contracts with our customers, our CPs, and we're going to have new contracts. And what that means is that we will give, rather than having to give a 15-month notice period to make any changes to our contract, it'll change to 3. And that gives us the benefit of, if we are seeing customers, if we're seeing things slow down, we can put things in to make it that little bit more uncomfortable to be on the old product, because change is hard, but we need to get people moving, right? And I think the harder it is, hopefully the more encouragement there will be. And obviously we haven't yet discussed that. Some of the things we're thinking of is end customer contact as well. So we might come out to some of your customers and talk to them, because it is difficult, and even 28% of people knowing about it is not enough, is it? How do we get more people to know? And then, so that through that final year, then there'll be more and more things that we implement to get people off. And then obviously January 2027 end of product. And I think as well, a really important thing to think about is, we don't want anyone still to be on in January 2027, but we've got to make some really big decisions about what happens after that, if there are people still left. And essentially, it's the switches are going. So there is some decisions to make at the end, and I think I don't really want anyone to be in a position where they potentially lose service where they could have migrated.
Absolutely. And there are, as we've just mentioned, there are some opportunities that this change presents too. I mean, if we think purely from a connectivity perspective, the increase in terms of availability and reliability and bandwidth that FTTP provides, there are some fundamental benefits there that customers can enjoy if they engage with this process and start to think more strategically about the future.
Absolutely. I think though the other thing I would say is that there are kind of two main products that we're using and that you're using, I guess, to move people off WLR. So we've got full fibre, which is, I've got it, it's fabulous. But we are rolling out and we're doing about 1 million premises passed every 3 months now. So we're getting there. It's a big country, okay? So we're trying to get to as much as possible. And the other product that we have is SIGIA. Another lovely acronym, and essentially that is very much like FTTC.
I'm going to decode that one for you, if that's okay, Juliette.
So you can do that one, yeah.
Single order generic Ethernet access. So we're very guilty in this industry of having complicated names for things. But
we are. I'll explain what it is rather than because it doesn't really mean a lot. Essentially, the fibre comes between the exchange and the cabinet. And then between the cabinet and the premises, it's still copper. So it's what we call, I think, what Ofcom call it is part fibre, part copper. And that means that you can still get super fast speeds, but not ultra fast speeds. So you can still normally get up to about 80 meg. But what that does mean is in the premises, you'd have to do a lot less. So actually, there's not no drilling. It's kind of using the wires you've still got, but potentially putting something different in the back of your router. So you've kind of got benefits from both. One is a little bit more intrusive at your house or your business, where you maybe have to do some drilling, but the other one is easier. But obviously, over time, we're hoping to get all of the premises in the country onto FTTP.
And that's a question I've been asked a lot by our customers: is that you're telling me that my current technology is being turned off, but I don't have full fibre available. So the product for them, in many instances, is SIGIA, as you've just mentioned, which I often like to refer to as the decoupling of the voice and the internet. So the voice component will no longer work, but we change how the internet service is delivered.
Nice. Yeah. So this is it. So SIGIA, yes, it's a product that is very similar to our fibre to the cabinet product, which is essentially still the same part fibre, part copper. And it basically at the minute it serves well over 95% of the country. So it's there, it's available. And I say we are building FTTP very, very quickly. Nobody's doing it faster. And we are trying to get to something like 30 million premises by the end of 2030. So we just continue to build, and as soon as that's available, right, people can then move on to full fibre.
Great. So let's move on then to what practical steps a business might need to take. So from my point of view, the first thing that they would probably need to do is understand what technology is available to them. So if we were to leave customers with anything today, it would be to engage with Zen, to engage with your provider, and to ascertain what technology you're currently using and what new technology is available. But I wonder from your point of view whether you have any kind of top tips or considerations that we need to be thinking about.
Well, I think you've got two of mine there, which is great, right? Know what you've actually got. I mean, we pay bills, and sometimes we pay bills without maybe looking at the detail, but actually look at what you are consuming. Have you got 2 lines, 3 lines? Are you using them all? And then really, what can you get? So obviously availability across, what kind of speeds, what do you need? But I think this is a chance to really evaluate what you do need, and actually, would it be beneficial to go up a speed tier? Would it be beneficial to for the stability, to get something slightly different? If you're on ISDN, for example, and you're using it for, I don't know, call center or for just managing lots of different lines coming to premises, is there a better way of doing it via some good tech that I'm not into that, but I've seen lots of people doing it. And think as well about maybe the type of journey. So, for example, if you get an engineer in, how can you help us to get it put in the right place? Do you need lots of internal cabling put in? Think about those kind of things. But your communication providers are experts, I guess, in the kind of things you do. There's no silver bullet. It's just really thinking, what have I got? What do I need? How do I get there?
Absolutely. And look, I'd agree with that. I think if you were to use this industry change as an opportunity to think a little bit more strategically about the long-term strategy for your business. So you mentioned communications. So obviously we know the world as well. How people work has changed. I mean, from Zen's perspective, I think the stat was about 25% of our customers are working in a hybrid way. So this change is a perfect opportunity to kind of take stock and review how you communicate, what systems, unified communications as an example, systems you use to communicate externally with customers, but also internally with your staff.
Definitely, yeah. I think there is. It's a kind of hopefully once in a lifetime opportunity to really have a think, isn't it? Maybe plan a little bit for the future and think, well, actually, I'll go a little bit further because I might need that. But yeah, it's a really good time to have a think about what you need.
I suppose that's the most exciting thing for me about the rollout of the full fiber network. So historically, every decade we've had different technology, different infrastructure builds, from actually the copper network, ADSL, dial-up if we want to go that further, fiber to the cabinet. Whereas the rollout of full fiber will be the last major infrastructure build, certainly in my lifetime, because the speeds are essentially the bandwidth capabilities are essentially limitless when we're on full fiber.
Absolutely, and it's what's on the end of it, isn't it? That's the only thing that stops you going faster. And I'm sure that there'll be some brilliant technologies and brilliant things that we can do with that speed that our kids, Lee, will probably tell us about in the future. And we'll say, no, you can't do that with it. But yeah, there'll be loads of different things. Can't wait to find them out, to be honest.
Great. Well, look, we've covered a lot of ground, Juliette. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to summarise, if that's okay, I think our position and let you jump in and correct anything if I've got it wrong. But some of the key takeaways I would say then is that first is the date that we've been talking to customers around of December 2025 has shifted to January 27. However, the message is that we should still be working towards migrating customers as soon as possible for all of the reasons we've mentioned, mainly due to the increased failure rate of legacy technologies compared to the new technologies. We're in agreement on that.
We're definitely in agreement on that, yes. In fact, if you want to migrate tomorrow, go for it.
Fantastic. And then in terms of the practical steps, the first step that we would say to all customers is to have a review of your current infrastructure. Talk to your provider, whether that be Zen or not, to understand what products and services you've currently got and how you're using those, with a view of understanding what products are available to you, be that full fiber, FTTP, or the other product, which was Sagia that you mentioned.
Perfect. I think even right. Milo, my little cat's listening, and I think he agrees. Don't you, Milo? Openreach cat this is.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'm going to thank you once again, Juliette. Thank you for your time. Thank you for walking us through these changes. And we shall speak very soon, no doubt.
Fabulous. Thanks, Lee. Nice to speak to you.
Take care.